what goes on media. This is Coming Out Stories. It's a podcast about one of the most important conversations of your life. I'm Emma Goswell. You're now going to hear a coming out story from someone you've probably seen on the telly box. He's been on dozens of shows and he also presents The Great British Sewing Bee and Joe Lycett's Got Your Back. Shall we let him introduce himself?
Hello, I am Joe Lycett, a man and a comedian and a TV presenter, person from Birmingham.
All of the above.
An artist as well.
Oh, yeah, OK. Piss artist at the moment.
Piss artist. I've had a few wines.
Now, I have to say, this is the first Coming Out Stories interview that I've done while wearing a bikini. It's quite glamorous already, isn't it?
Really?
Yeah.
You should do it more often.
I should really. So I will just point out that me and Joe are currently on holiday in Portugal, sat on a veranda, so you may hear some bird noise in the background and maybe the odd passing car.
Yes, and also I should inform the audience that I'm talking through the prism of half a bottle of dry white wine.
Yes, which you've been consuming poolside.
Yes.
It's been very glamorous. OK, right, it is called Coming Out Stories for a reason. Does what it says on the tin. When was the moment for yourself, do you think, that you sort of acknowledged that you weren't definitely heterosexual?
I had a moment, and I can't give you a date or a sort of age really, but I remember being in the bath and thinking about it and being worried and thinking, oh shit, like I've got these thoughts and these desires which definitely don't tally up with the majority of the people that I go to school with and the people that I'm around. And I'm guessing that would have been around 12 years old, something like that. Just, yeah, really sort of worried about it. It wasn't something I was happy about. But then also at that age I wasn't happy about puberty and, you know, growing into an adult man. There was a lot about that I didn't enjoy. I was quite happy being a little boy. I didn't want to grow up really. So.
Was there any sort of homophobia in your school, or were people saying things that would make you think, "Oh, this is not a great option"?
Definitely. I actually can't pinpoint any specific thing, but at that age, I'm 30 now, so that would have been 18 to 20 years ago. There were no role models, particularly for me in England, really, that did much for kind of gay stuff, particularly in that age range. The show that really helped me was Will and Grace. I loved that show, and I really looked up to. It was like a lifestyle, and particularly the comedy side of it, because it's such a funny show. But just the fact that these people were living openly gay, and it seemed to be quite exciting, funny lives.
And you didn't know anyone in Birmingham doing a similar thing?
No, absolutely didn't. And I think Birmingham, particularly at that time, I hated Birmingham. When I finished school, I couldn't wait to get out. I was so thrilled to go to Manchester. I felt like Manchester was cool and had like a thriving gay scene, and Birmingham's gay scene was, there wasn't a lot going on there. It's totally different now. But yeah, there was no sense of contemporaries, I suppose, or people that were also my sort of age who were talking about being, even, I mean, because I'm not gay, I describe myself as pansexual, but even just talking about being gay just wasn't a thing. I can't actually think of anyone in my year who came out. There must have been some, but...
It kind of happens in retrospect, doesn't it? You think you're the only one, and then years later you're like, oh my God, they're gay. Oh, and they're gay. Oh, and they're a lesbian. Oh, and they're bi.
Yeah, but they didn't do it then because it probably made sense to not do it then, because it would have been just a headache. My experience at school was not aggressive, or there wasn't any kind of violent homophobia there particularly. There was just like a sense of like, well, no one is, so no one comes out, I suppose. But that's almost worse, the fact that it was sort of this, like...
No one talked about it.
No one talked about it. You didn't even actually have anything to fight against, because it was just this sort of kind of unspoken thing that, like, you just don't come out, you're not gay.
And the fact that you weren't gay, that you now describe yourself as pansexual, was that confusing? Was that quite a process for you to go through? Did you think you might be gay at one point? Or?
Yeah, so I came out as gay originally. So I think, and I didn't come out to mum and dad or whatever, but I came out to a few close friends and basically said, I think I'm gay. I remember one of my friends, it stuck with me, one of my friends said to me, sometimes people look at people of their gender and see, you know, someone attractive of their gender, and they aspire to be like that. So they see someone like with a six-pack or whatever, and they think, they aspire to be like that, and they confuse that with being attracted to it. I thought there was some interesting psychology going on there, that because I don't entirely disagree with it. I do disagree with it, but part of it is like I would like to have that body, and I would like to be ripped in some ways, but I never will be that. So
yes, but it's also like, but you want to have sex with that person. So
and also I want to shag them.
That's the gay bit.
That's the gay bit.
Yeah.
But so I came out because basically my logic was, in my world there was gay or straight, so nothing. It hadn't been explained to me. There was no role model that was like both. I'd never heard of bisexuality, and so I thought, well, if you're having gay thoughts, then you must be gay.
Yeah, but that's always been like that, hasn't it? I think the B in the LGBT community has always been really hidden, even though that, numerically they make the least noise, but there are the more of them.
What, bisexuals?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Is that?
Yeah,
I didn't know
so.
that. Is that the case statistically? Sort of thought there might be more straight people, and then there's the rest of us queers. I just sort of think of us in a kind of open bracket of just queer people.
Yeah.
The sense of being gay at that time was very binary. It was very like you were one or the other. You're male, straight, male or female, gay or straight. There was no blurred lines there, and it's taken me a long time to sort of work out, because the pansexual thing for me is. Ideally, we wouldn't deal with any labels, and as far as I'm concerned, we wouldn't worry about any of the letters really. But we have to, because it's a way of protecting one another and making sure that groups that are being chastised have a safe space and places that they can reside, where they're not going to be attacked or humiliated. But I go with pansexual because I sort of feel like it's the thing that's closest to what I think I am, which is kind of whatever. It's sort of, it doesn't really, the gender of somebody isn't really the deciding factor. It plays a role, but it's so many other things.
And so many more people identifying as that. I think even 5 years ago, a lot of people would be like, "Pan what?"
Yeah. And so I've come out 3 times, because I came out as bisexual, and now I'm sort of pansexual. But I'm really straight these days. I don't really sleep with men that much, and I wonder whether that's out of sort of fear, because I've not done it, and it's and I also don't feel like my taste in men is very basic. I really like a twink, and I'm not really fussed about anything else.
Okay.
So, and twinks generally don't like my body type, because twinks, in my experience, like other twinks. But also, I'm not pushing it that much either. So, whereas I sort of find it's sort of women are a bit more about the kind of a bit more of a rounded package, I suppose.
But you're single at the moment, but not particularly looking to mingle.
No, not really. As I said to you earlier, I'm looking to have a bit more, a few more cuddles than I'm getting. Instead of cuddles, full penetrative sex. But
it's exactly what you said to me earlier. I would like more sex.
Yes.
I mean, not asking me for sex, obviously. That's not
that
what
was the
implied.
subtext, but then... But you spurned me, so there we go.
Have some of that wine, Joe. Have a little sip there. You look like you're gasping for it.
I mean, it's been 5 minutes without a sip, so that's the issue.
Good God. So, did you have conversations with your family about your sexuality?
Yeah, Mum was first, and she cried. I said, I think I might be bisexual, and she cried, and I cried, and she doesn't care, but she was worried that... I think she cried just at the kind of the honesty and the connection of that moment. She cries at anything, really, old Helen Lycett. I think she was worried that it would put me in danger and that it would restrict my opportunities. And I think she was probably right at one point in her life it would have done. I mean, in her adult life, it was illegal to be gay. So
but what did she actually say?
I can't remember, really. I can't remember. She was just a bit like, oh. But in my experience, actually, it's been one of the things that's gifted me so many opportunities, because it's made me that bit different, and it's made me interesting to people, and in a way that if I was straight and white and male, I think a lot of doors would have been closed in terms of entertainment and showing off and all that.
It certainly hasn't affected your career, has it, in a bad way?
No, it hasn't. It's been glorious, and people really respect the fact that I talk about it and that I'm honest about it. And one of the amazing things that's come out of this last tour that I did, I have a big section in the show where I talk about LGBTQ plus rights and about the definitions of these terms and whatever. It's the messages you get from people saying, thank you for explaining this to my mum, dad, whoever I was with, who hadn't really understood it, and it made it accessible and it made it not heavy. And because I've got a big issue with the LGBTQ community sort of getting impatient with people not understanding every little facet of the way that the community works and the terminology. And I think it's on us to be more compassionate to people that don't understand and say, oh, well, this is what this is, rather than being like, you idiot, you homophobe, you know. I think we can sometimes be quite quick to lash out at people that don't understand things and call them idiots. And I do it as well in my stand-up. So, you know, I'm guilty of the same, but I try to be a bit more patient with people that don't understand, because I think that's the only way that you persuade people round.
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit like being in a club, isn't it, with its own sort of rules and things that you have to navigate, and you don't necessarily understand it. If you know what I mean.
And sometimes people ask questions that to people who are in the community seem stupid or seem unkind almost, but actually they're just honest questions, which if you give an honest answer to, is a bit better.
Did you have to come out to anyone else in your family?
I don't know if I did, actually. I sort of did it through stand-up, weirdly.
Oh, okay.
I remember my nan, I was sat with my nan and my cousin said to me, "You gay?" And I went, "No." And then I sort of got really like hot and flustered, and I think my nan basically deduced from that I wasn't comfortable with the answer that I'd given or whatever. So I think my nan worked it out through that, but she died. Never came out to her, but she died soon after. My granddad came to watch me do stand-up, so he got it, and then all of my extended family got it through stand-up, I think, basically. That's what stand-up is, a really useful way for me to actually be honest with the people in my life about what I actually think, because I'm often in person, I think, sort of, I just keep my mouth shut, or I'm terrified of actually giving my real opinion on things, and so stand-up is my sort of way of going like, actually, I think you're a prick.
I suppose in that career, you have to be honest, don't you? You can't be... Or was there ever a moment when you thought, oh, actually, this is a bit too personal, I don't want to put that on stage?
No, what I realised quite early on in stand-up is the funniest thing is often the first thing that comes to mind, which is often the most honest thing. And particularly when you're doing a bit of audience chat, if you think, often you'll have a chat with somebody, and if it's some prick in a suit who's trying to be cocky or whatever, the first thing that will come to your head is, you seem like a bit of a bellend. And if you actually just say that in front of a room of people, they love it, because it's the most honest thing, and thus it's funny because it's sort of a stream of consciousness thing. I think honesty on stage is something I have no issue with. It's off stage when I struggle with it often. And it's not that I lie to people, it's just that I don't give them the full truth, or I'm diplomatic, I suppose. But...
And have you ever faced any sort of homophobia or biphobia since you've been in the public eye?
Yeah, defo. When I started out, I did most of my gigs in Manchester or around, and in shitty pubs, and with old men pubs, and that's the perfect place to learn how to be a stand-up in the UK, because you really learn how to deal with tricksy audience members and all that. And I definitely had a couple of gigs where my sort of MO when I dealt with anyone who was homophobic was I'd sit on their lap, and I would then ask them, like with my arm draped around them, exactly what their issue was.
Brilliant.
Which has since been flagged up as potentially problematic, because I didn't get consent from them.
God.
That I was sat on their lap, which I think is interesting, because I don't care. I don't care that I didn't get consent from the homophobe. I quite liked sort of prodding that a little bit. I got a little bit of it there. But actually the biphobia I got was almost entirely from gay men, weirdly. Straight people don't seem to care. They just sort of put bis in the same bracket as everyone else. So
isn't that funny? I think it happens so much in our community. I've been told thousands of times by lesbians, stop dating bisexual women. They're no good for you, Emma. They'll all... And ironically, most of them have left me for men, but not all. There's a lot of biphobia, isn't there?
Well, I get it, because the gay community fought really hard long before I was a twinkle in my mother's eye to not be killed. And I've lived in a really brilliant time for LGBT people, in that, like, it's all discussed, it's open, there's spaces all over the place, there's gay villages in pretty much every major city. There's space for us. And when my parents were growing up, there wasn't, and people were being killed and attacked and worse. And they fought for that, and then someone like me comes along going like, yeah, I'm sort of a bit gay, but not, it's there must be that sort of mentality of like, we fought really hard for this, and decide if you're in or you're not, because we're vulnerable. The people like that pretending to be a bit gay or whatever must have been a danger to them. There had to be a space.
Not about pretending, though, is it? It's just a different sexuality. And I think people just don't get that, do they?
Yeah, of course. What I'm saying is I sort of have sympathy towards the biphobia in some ways, but it is, again, about not being like, you fucking old puffs that don't understand this new young people's sexuality. It's about going, oh, I get why you have that, but also I'm no threat to you. I don't want to kill your culture. We can coexist. It's not about gay being one thing and bi being another. It's just we're all people, essentially.
So do you get involved in LGBT politics? Do you go on the marches and things like that?
Yeah, I do a little bit. I don't get massively involved in a lot of political stuff. Like I'm not a political comedian, but I really get wound up about LGBT stuff, and I'm interested as to why. So there's a tweet that I did. There's this big thing going on in Birmingham. It's sort of calmed down now a little bit, but in Birmingham there's a big thing about a school which is largely Muslim, which the parents were rallying outside against the fact that they were teaching the kids in the school about LGBT families. And actually, when you look at the curriculum that they were dealing with, it's very tame. It's just explaining, essentially.
Yes, it was about celebrating diversity, wasn't it? And equality.
It wasn't sexual. It wasn't like, sometimes men suck each other off and shove their fingers up each other's asses or any of that. It was like, literally, like, sometimes two men are in a relationship and they'll be married and they'll have children, and sometimes two women are, and it's all fine, and that's what life's like, and people are different. And it was all very tame, but some of the parents were cross about it, and they rallied, and it became this big thing in the news. And I did this tweet because I was cross about it, but I didn't pinpoint any individuals. I just said, I think it was something like, FYI, LGBTQ plus people exist. They exist in all cultures, all around the world. You might not like us, but you won't ever stop us, because we are your family and your friends, and we exist all around you. And then I've put something frivolous at the end, which is something like, and we're all really fucking cool. Something silly like that.
I think I remember seeing it.
Yeah, and it got retweeted tens of thousands of times, and it really kind of struck a nerve with people. And the problem with that is then I got lots of people being like, who are you specifically referring to? Is it the Muslim people of Birmingham or whatever? And no, it's not, because I'm referring specifically to people who don't like LGBTQ plus people. And of course, there's some people who interpret the Muslim faith as being against that, but some Catholics are just as bad. Jewish people struggle with it. Like, religion is historically not great with our community, so it's not about Muslims; it's about phobia towards our people.
Well, it's a bit of a minefield, though, I guess.
But it was a minefield. But I didn't care being in that minefield, because I care about it, and I knew it was right what I was saying, and I talk about it in the stand-up as well. But the marches and getting involved in other stuff, I know I sort of shy away from all of that, and I don't really know why, because I do care about it, but I sort of feel like I say my piece in my work. I do it in that way rather than turning up to rallies and events and whatever, because I also feel like rallies and events can sometimes become, the message can get a bit lost and get a bit dictated to by the people running the rallies. And
but you're out and proud and you're living your life. Yeah. Out and proud pansexual man.
I am, absolutely. It's all very well documented.
You just wish there was more of it to document.
Yeah, gosh, I wish there was more to document, yeah.
OK, so lastly, if there's anyone listening that might be sort of struggling with their sexuality and not understanding whether they're gay, straight, bi or pan, and not knowing what to do or what to say, what would you suggest?
Don't worry about it too much, because it's ultimately irrelevant, and that's an easy thing for me to say in living in England as a minor celebrity, but your sexuality is your own, and you don't have to come out. There's no pressure on you to, and actually in lots of places the wise thing to do is not come out. If you're living in Saudi Arabia, I would advise keep it to yourself. It probably won't go well if you do come out. Also, remember and know that there are so many people like you living glorious, happy lives with partners or not having partners. There is a space for you to be happy, and there is a way of that happening. So it feels heavy at times when you first come into terms with your sexuality, and it feels like there's no way out, and that you're dirty or there's something wrong with you, and all of those things that come with the way that society treats people in our community. But there's loads of people that are on the other side of it who are really happy, and you will inevitably be one of them. Right now is uncomfortable, but it's not forever.
One day you will be a happy, proud, pansexual, beautiful creature like Joe Lycett.
Or you might be a bitter old queen, and either of those are fine.
Amen to that. Should we go and have some more wine?
Yes, please.
There you go. What a treat to chat to Joe Lycett in our swimming wear, no less. And if you want to find out what he's up to next, please do follow him on Twitter. In fact, if you're not following Joe Lycett on Twitter, you're not doing it properly. He is very funny. Please do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. We'd also love to hear from you on Twitter. You can find us there at Come Out Stories. I'm Emma Goswell, and Coming Out Stories is a What Goes On media production.